San Francisco is providing unequal environmental protection for its residents and its citizens in Bayview Hunters Point. Before BP, British Petroleum, exposed to the world the fact that our government has placed our health and our safety in the hands of corporate polluters, it has been the residents of Bayview Hunters Point confronting their local government in defense of their human rights to health, their human rights to freedom from racial discrimination, and their human right to privacy as it relates to the security and enjoyment of their homes. These basic human rights are not respected at all in the decision by the San Francisco Planning Department and its redevelopment agency to approve the deeply flawed proposal by Lennar that exposes residents to health-damaging toxins and will ultimately displace residents from their neighborhood.
Bayview Hunters Point is a Superfund site. Superfund sites are the worst hazardous waste sites in the United States. The remedy that is being proposed for Bayview Hunters Point will leave contamination on the site. Will leave contamination on most of the site. It will require a cover or a cap. And frequently when I talk to community groups, when I talk about a cover or a cap, it's like putting a layer of Play-Doh over the waste. And in addition, there will be a requirement for institutional controls, which will tell you where you can and cannot dig, where you can and cannot plant a garden, and where that cap has to be left untouched. And I can tell you horror stories about communities that allowed a cap to be placed and came in one day and there was a contractor out there digging through the cap and into the waste. So bear in mind when we talk about the final remedy is waste will remain on site and will be managed by a cap and or institutional controls. So when you look at the environmental impact report, the EIR that everyone's talking about, what happens is you observe that there is lots of money already been spent on, quote, the cleanup or the remediation on Hunters Point. However, there's a lot of work left to do. There's a lot of contamination still on the site. And matter of fact, the things that are called the record of decision, which says this is how we're going to clean it up, for 2 of the sites have just been instituted and the rest are still being developed. So there's lots of work left to decide on based on sampling what needs to be done, how we move forward to address the issues. But the EIR allows for parcels to be transferred and what's called early transfer so that it's not under the Navy's jurisdiction and the Navy's control with EPA's oversight, but it will be handed off to the city redevelopment agency who in turn can hand it off to someone else, such as Lennar. What will happen is it will allow redevelopment to go on at the same time as cleanup or remedy. So you have a small piece that's still undergoing cleanup, excavation of the waste, hauling it off, still trying to find where all the waste is and how deep it is. And at the same time, you have companies like construction companies in down building the redevelopment. So at the same time, you have people in the construction companies being exposed to the waste while the cleanup crews are in there doing their job. And the communities around it will also be exposed. So it's inappropriate to allow exposure to occur to community groups or contractors for redevelopment until the site is, quote, clean and everybody agrees that the cleanness is at a level which everyone can agree to. Louisiana, this is day 84 on the BP oil spill. As I said, Love Canal was before 1980 and resulted in Superfund regulations. Hurricanes Katrina and Rita devastated the Gulf Coast in 2005. I have been involved in all of those and many more issues, bringing the issues, technical issues, to the politicians and to the community. And the politicians and the regulatory agencies usually say, no, you're wrong. That's not going to happen. And a couple years later, it happens. So what we're trying to avoid happening here is another Love Canal, another Katrina, another BP. We do not want the citizens of San Francisco, and particularly the citizens of Bayview Hunters Point, exposed to contamination. And we want these sites cleaned up, and then the community involved in what kind of redevelopment will take place after the cleanup. But we do not want to damage any more community members.
Cisco and I have seen the impacts of gentrification in my community. I grew up in the Mission District. What I'd like to speak to today is a very important issue that everyone is concerned with here, including our allies on this side and our brothers and sisters that are here in support of Lennar. And we were told that local construction jobs are excluded from a local hiring agreement, which means that the city cannot mandate construction companies to hire locally. So when we look at the T3rd, when we look at the ballpark, when we look at Mission Bay, where we were promised local jobs and we got crumbs, what makes people think this is gonna be any different? That's what makes you think. So, what we would like to say.
Education!
And make sure.
Education! We need to stop looking for a handout and work for it.
Bring us some jobs.
My name is Mr. Crab. I have a message
Who actually live in these units, who actually go and clean up on the shipyard, who grandfathers actually lived on the shipyard and cleaned on the shipyard, and they never had cancer, and they never had nosebleeds. I have asthma, but my asthma hasn't even been bad. I mean, keep it real.
District 10, we collected 17,000 census forms. We employ right now 85 youths in our organization. We got 85 people working from the jobs now that's supporting their kids and making a self-esteem. If we get this CBO money, we can send them people to college. We can own businesses. We can stop living a whole generation within a household. We can stop living in a gated community. We can be hooked up with the rest of the city.
They can fix the problem
coming in and
better
out.
yet.
But leave it up to them. They want to still sleeping in the backyards, and that's not what's going on.
With the redevelopment of it, they can fix the problem instead of let the problem lie dormant.
This ain't for no grant. This is for my life.
Yeah.